My dear student, after a long time, Professor Dr.Nasir shared again with you. In 1920, during COVID, I have recorded some of my lectures during COVID, and that was about bioenergetics. After the demand of my students that they want number of other topics, so I am going to start with the type of the living things. You know that the biology is the study of living things, and how we can define living things. The most important and the vital property for the living thing is that they have a property of reproduction or replication. Means all the things which have this capability or this property, they are called living things. Then the living things are of two types. Number one are the living things which does not contain cell, or they are not made up of cells, but they are living things. These are generally called living molecules or living entity, and nowadays we study under the heading of the acellular life. I have some objection on this acellular, therefore I always title it with the non-cellular life. Acellular because the zoologists use this acellular life for the protozoans. So many books, the old classical books, use this term acellular for the protozoans. That's why I have some reservation for this word, therefore I use but the non-cellular. But nowadays the books use the acellular life for those living things which haven't got the cell, or we call them the living molecules or living entity. Until now, the three types of the living entities come in light, or you can say discovered. One group of these type of the living things are called viruses. Another one is the viroid. The third one are the prions. Although all of these are parasitic, they are obligate parasite because they require the host for their metabolic activity, or you can say the living activity. That's why we call them the living things, but obligate parasite. Now another one are the living organisms, and the living organisms according to the cell theory, all the living organisms are made up of cell. Therefore, the living organisms are those living things which are made up of cells. They start from bacteria to the flowering plants, or from bacteria to the mammals. Now, the virus, since long, it hurt people, because whenever the peregrine-like diseases or the bird flu-like diseases were spread, so many living organisms died. In past, we have peregrine of this type, and nowadays we have COVID-19, which cost life of the million of the peoples around the world. So it is very dangerous organism, and the people were thinking in the past, the people were thinking that the sort of the poisonous air are going to spread in the environment. Therefore, they call this sort of the venom is there, which point into a Trump biome, and at last it becomes the virus with the poison, means some type of the poisonous air was there. But after some investigation, the people get the diseased plant or diseased living organisms, and they develop a filter of the porcelain, especially the Chamberlain was the person who developed a porcelain filter whose pores were of 0.1 micrometer. It means that the no bacteria can pass through because bacteria diameter is at least the smallest bacteria has a diameter of 0.2 micron. So from these pores, the bacteria cannot pass through these pores. Only if there is anything other than bacteria, smaller than bacteria, can pass through these porcelain filter pores. Whenever they pass the filtrate or the mixture develop or prepare from the diseased leaves of some plants, they have a filtrate, and especially the Avanosky was the scientist. He spread this filtrate on a healthy plant, and the plant become infected. From this, he got to know that two characteristics are there. That the viruses are not the poisonous air. It is something physical which can be filtered. That's why now he coined the term filterable virus, means the poison is that type which you can filter from the diseased living organism, and whenever it comes in contact with the healthy living organism, it causes infection in them. So first thing was that it is filterable virus. The another one is that it is transmittable virus, means it transmits from infected living organism to the healthy living organism. Nowadays, you have observed it during COVID-19 that if you come in contact in any way with a person who has a COVID or who has a corona disease, then what's going on? If you are going to shake hand or you are in contact, that's why the social distancing developed to prevent from the COVID. So this means that it is transmitted from, it can transmit from infected person to the healthy person. The second thing was it can be filtered through the porcelain filter. Now the question arises here. These are the things. It can be filtered, it can be transmitted, but what is the shape of this virus? No one knows. Because it was very, very small in the microscope which was present at that time, was unable to magnify, to observe this type of the living entity or the type of the entity which caused these type of the diseases. So what we can do, the people think of the time that we have to develop a very sophisticated microscope by which we can observe these type of the things, and at last the electron microscope was invented. Now we have two inventions here. Number one was the porcelain filter, and another one was the electron microscope. And it became easy to observe after this, and it became easy to observe these type of the very, very microscopic living entity like virus. And Wendell Stanley in 1935 made the filtrate from a diseased tobacco leaf. Means the tobacco plant has a special type of the leaf which cause the mosaic, means some type of the pattern or the design or destroy their leaves. So the mosaic is the designing. Due to the damage of the leaves, because the virus attack on it, and virus destroys some of the tissues of that leaf, so it develop a pattern on the leaf, and the people called this disease is the tobacco mosaic disease. That Wendell Stanley made the filtrate from this tobacco mosaic disease plant leaf, and then what happens? What he did, he observed the filtrate under the microscope, and he found that there is a virus which is called tobacco, which he called the tobacco mosaic virus because it caused the disease tobacco mosaic in the tobacco plant. So the virus he named tobacco mosaic virus. And after that, when he observed, surprising for him. There is no cell, nothing, no any protoplasm, no any organelle. It was just a very simple thing, which is consist of the protein coat around it and just the genome in it. Genome means the total gene of an organism which might be made up of, usually made, well, not right, but the usually made up of DNA. But here in this case, it was RNA. So he found nothing but a tube-like structure made up of protein, and inside this tube is a genome which he called, or we called it, capsid, and this one is the gene. This is made up of protein, and this one is made up of our nucleic acid. Either it may be nucleic acid, it may be DNA or RNA. But in the case of the tobacco mosaic virus, it is RNA. So that simplest living thing, which does not contain any cell, which does not contain any protoplasm, which contain only these two type of the things, and this is called virus, which can cause so many diseases, which is virus. Now, if you want to define virus, that what is a virus, so we can define virus very easily, that virus is a non-cellular living entity. Okay, man, I will say non-cellular, obligate, parasitic living entity, which contain, or which is made up of, it is made up of capsid and gene. Just it's a destination of the virus or viruses. Since now it's a long debate that either the virus is a non-living thing or is a living thing. After that, the people were saying that it is at the borderline of it. But after this COVID-19, can you say that it is at the borderline? Definitely it's a living thing which causes infection, which can destroy so many living organisms, which cause the death in the living organism in millions. So we cannot deny, or we cannot say that it is at the borderline of the living or non-living. Although it has some special characteristic feature which has or which resembles with the non-living things. But it is not a non-living thing. Now the question arises, what type of the living characters has? On the basis of that, I am saying that it is definitely a living thing because it can replicate. Life cycle is here. They can produce their own one. Either they themselves cannot produce. With the help of the host, they can replicate themselves. The other property, they have their own genome. It means that they have their own peculiar characteristic feature. Or another thing, whenever the genome is there, it has a function to synthesize their different types of the molecule, although it is with the help of the host, but not by themselves, because they haven't got the whole, they haven't got the factory, metabolic factory. That's why. The another thing, which is the peculiar characteristic of also the living thing, which is called the mutation. The next is it contains protein and some enzyme as well as which cause the metabolic activity, as well as they can interact genetically and physiologically as interest. They are working as an obligate parasite living. Like other living organisms, the UV light or ultraviolet light can harm them, because the ultraviolet light also harms On the other hand side, what are the non-living characteristics present in them? The viruses are inactive outside the host. Like cell and cell organelles, as I have discussed before, cannot perform metabolism by their own. They perform and they cannot produce their own energy because they use the energy and the metabolic factory of the host cell. They can, a peculiar characteristic of the non-living thing, that is they can crystallize, which is not present in any living thing any living organism. This is the special characteristic feature which is found here. I think it's enough to introduce virus as a living thing. It's not a non-living thing, but some properties of living thing. We will continue with the other aspect of the virus in my next lecture. Thank you.